You're on.
Hello, this is Kate Silverton with the BBC News English. We are here at 21 New Globe Walk, Bankside in London at the grand opening of the new Globe Theatre. This year of 1997 marks 384 years since the tragedy of the old theatre. We are here today with the historical expert Joanna Gosling at the new theatre to help shed some light on the history of the Globe Theatre. Now, can you tell us when and where the original Globe Theatre was built?
The original theatre was built in 1599 in London.
And what was used to construct the theatre?
The theatre was made of materials such as timber, nails, stone, and glass.
And what was the shape?
The theatre had a circular shape. It was open in the middle, and the seats circled around the stage.
And about what would you say was the size of the Globe Theatre?
The circumference of the Globe Theatre was approximately 300 feet, and the roof spanned 46 feet.
And what was the stage like? How big was it?
The stage was about 5 feet high and 45 feet wide by 30 feet long. And behind the stage was a tiring house where the actors and performers would go to change. Here you can see a diagram of the original theatre. You can see all of the seating around.
And what was it like to be an actor at the Globe Theatre?
Well, all of the actors were expected to perform their own stunts. Some would do sword fighting, and most had to fake fall convincingly. Actors needed to be very loud so that their voices would travel to the entire audience. As actors, they all needed to have a good memory to perform the many stunts.
While you were mentioning the audience, how many people usually came to the theatre?
The theatre could really only hold about 1,500 people, but the number usually got closer to 3,000 with all of the people crowded outside.
What kinds of people would come to see the shows put on?
Normally, the theatre wasn't occupied by royalty. However, the upper class and nobles would pay for better seats in the Lord's Room. These nicer seats cost the nobles 5 cents. On the other hand, the lower class would pay 1 cent for less desirable seats. The lower class commoners were called groundlings because they stood in the pit by the stage.
Did royalty and the English monarchy have anything to do with the theatre?
Well, during the time, royalty leading the country would force the rest of the country to follow the same religious beliefs as them.
And what was the religion during the time, and did that really affect the plays?
During Shakespeare's time, the main religion was Catholic. Many of his plays were based on religion and Catholicism.
And how did the audience normally act during any performances going on then?
The audience was normally loud. They would cheer, shout, and boo at the actors. And they would damage stools, walls, and curtains if they did not like the show.
Wow, I can't believe people would do that. How did the people know which plays were going to be performed that day?
They would often post the names of the shows on flags surrounding the outside of the theater so that people would know what plays were upcoming.
Now, moving on to a more different subject, can you explain the tragedy of the old theater?
On June 29, 1613, a play about King Henry VIII called All Is True required firing a cannon to introduce the entrance of King Henry VIII. Sparks from the cannon landed on the thatched roof, starting a fire.
So you mean they used an actual cannon during the show?
They did use real cannons during their shows.
What kind of destruction did the fire cause?
The theater burned down in less than 2 hours. Fortunately, there were no injuries or deaths.
Were there any attempts to rebuild the theater after the fire?
The theater was rebuilt in 1614 and later closed by the Puritans.
Why, if the original theater closed down so long ago, are we just now opening a new one?
Well, after the Puritans closed down the theater in 1642, it was then destroyed in 1644 to make room for tenants. The theater was then discovered in 1989 beneath a car park after being lost for so long.
How close to the original site is the Globe Theatre now?
Our new address in London is only 200 yards away from the original theater site.
And what do you expect for this new Globe Theatre?
We expect the new theater to entertain people just as the old theater did. The mix of historical information as well as some modern plays should appeal to many different people. We hope to have our new Globe Theatre for many years to come.
Thank you for all the information. It was nice meeting you.
And you can also see pictures of our new Globe Theatre. It's similar in shape to the old one. You still have the open roof and the seating around the stage. Yeah.
Thank you. Great job. Okay, a couple things. Not only did these flags contain the names, before names were actually printed or sewn onto these flags, the color of the flag was very important. Red would indicate that a historical play was being played. A white would indicate a comedy, and a black would indicate a tragedy. So even though they might not know the title of the play, Shakespeare, as the rest of his company, thought it was imperative that they at least know the genre of which was going on. Shakespeare actually was one of 8 people to fund the building of the original Globe. Did you guys come across that? His acting company, which originally was called the Lord Chamberlain's Men, there was 8 of them. And they were the ones that would kind of like travel around and do all the shows. Okay? And since England was growing in numbers of people, meaning the inner city people, which had grown approximately 200%, the theater was like the only thing to do. It was just as popular to go to see a play at the Globe Theater as it was to go to a Steelers game, Jason Aldean, anything that attracts a large amount of people for us in our society. So when they decided to build the Globe Theater, obviously they didn't have, funding from other people in England. So his company is the one that put forth their own money to build the original Globe. Later on, when Queen Elizabeth was no longer on the throne, stuff like that, that's whenever his acting company got changed to the King's Men, when King James took over. Other than that, you did mention about the people attending, how it was the groundlings paid a penny to be on the ground level, stand most of the time. You could have paid, some money for a cushion, some money for a bench, things like that. But most of the time, those groundlings were the ones that caused such havoc in the play, and that's what you had kind of mentioned. But Shakespeare and his company was very adamant that he wanted all of his shows to be affordable for everyone. Now, Shakespeare and his company did do private shows outside of the Globe Theater for the Queen and other members of royalty. Because if you can imagine, it had been very frustrating for those people that were higher class sitting up on the balcony levels of the Globe Theater, but then having to deal with the rude and lewd behavior of the groundlings that were beneath them. Since it was open, like you said, there were many times where the Globe Theater was closed. Obviously, during the winter months, there were no plays. Obviously, during the nighttime, no plays. It was a daylight thing, and they were closed a lot because of the influx of people that would be at the plays. There was also a large spread of the plague and other diseases, so they'd have to close. Otherwise, they were really risking the health of everyone in England. They could have really wiped out an entire community just by people attending these plays. So when we talked about Shakespeare, Aaron mentioned about not knowing this about Shakespeare. All of this is a time period where we kind of like lost him. That's exactly what it was called. It was his lost years. And those years in that time span were times when the Globe Theater was not functioning. Okay, but good that you did mention there were 3. Yeah, they did think it was pretty wise to use paper and clothing and stuff it in a cannon and shoot it off. Good job there, Shakespeare. And lit the whole thing on fire, and you can go see an authentic Shakespeare play at the Globe currently, as well as what?
Do they shoot cannons?
They do. And if you go to an authentic Shakespeare play, just like it is if you attend the Globe today, there's very few props, there's very few scenery things set up, and all males play the actors. There are no females in the plays. Because, and you guys mentioned but didn't kind of stress it a little bit, the Puritans came in and were the ones that closed the second Globe down because of their high religious beliefs and thinking that if you attended the plays, if you participated in the plays, that it was seen as immoral behavior. And that was the main reason why women were not allowed to go and participate in these events. When we start reading Romeo and Juliet, right from the get-go, you're going to see that Shakespeare's plays, although some people might sit here and feel like they're going to like snooze and doze off, it's full of a lot of sexual innuendos as well as jokes. There's a lot of hidden meaning behind some of his lines that can be taken in an immoral type way or just kind of not even realized kind of way. Some I will pick out for you, and some I will not. But most of Shakespeare's plays had that stuff in it, and everybody says, well, why? That doesn't make him a good writer. That does make him a good writer. That would have been funny, especially for people that were in the groundling spot, because they weren't also proper and, full of etiquette like the other ones were. So they would have really enjoyed that type of humor, if you want to call it that. So that was good. So good job.